Welcome back to Coast AM, everyone. I'm George Knapp. Thanks to those listeners who've been sending in additional information about the Asian markets and what's going on there. Apparently that little tidbit I gave you an hour ago at the beginning of the program about the markets going crazy is accurate. Dorothy in Central California is one of those who wrote in and said that according to CNBC, gold is up about $25, silver's up 21 and change, Indian markets, Japanese markets down. Chaos is reigning. Thanks for that information, Dorothy, and we'll update you if we get any additional developments. We're going back now to our guest, Tony Nastasi, the mobster formerly known as Tony Nastasi. We're calling him Tony. We don't know what name he's going by now because it doesn't want to be found. Tony, you mentioned that you started out as a kid doing stuff for the mob. The robbery you mentioned, what else did you do for him that eventually leads to you getting into the escort service business?
I did a lot of things. I mean, I hooked up with the guy I told you about. He was a straight-out guy, the guy that pushed me through the window. He became a straight-out guy later. And, he was my go-to guy, And he liked me, took me under his wing, and did a lot of things for him. I mean, we set up, I got into the electronics business a little bit and had a lot of stores, got myself a chain of stores, and got into the satellite business, but not for the reason of for home entertainment. Got into the satellite business because we opened up horse rooms for my friend. And we put up satellite dishes, and we were smuggling Dakotas from Toronto, Canada, into the country, and setting up horse rooms for the mob at the time. This is before they legalized OTP there, which they're about to illegalize again, I understand, in New York. So that's going to make the bookies very happy there again. So horse rooms will start sprouting up all over the place again.
Did you do some time?
Yes, I did.
For what'd you do time for?
I actually did a time, for that robbery. What it was, one of the youngsters that were involved in that, lived out on Long Island, and he thought it was cool to drive around in a stolen car, with a gun under the seat. And he didn't feel he had to pay attention to red lights or stop signs, These are the kind of dimwits that you will find out there. And anyway, he got stopped by the police. They, knew the car was stolen. Of course, they searched the car. They found the gun. So now right away they're thinking, this guy's doing robberies. So they grill him and everything else, and they tell him he's going to do 150 years chained to a wall. And, he rolled. He rolled over.
Gave you
a robbery. And who was involved in everything, And,
So he gave you up, right?
He gave me up, gave up the other guys, too.
And so did they come and find you? They arrested you, threw you in the...
Sure they arrested me.
Didn't you wise off to these cops or something when they were picking you up?
Oh, not when they picking me up. When they got me down, down to the precinct, okay? When they got me finally down to central booking at the time. And they started handing me this stuff. You cooperate, we'll talk to the DA and this and that. I says, well, you can have a conversation with the DA without me. You don't need me for a conversation with the DA. You want to take them out to dinner, you can do that too. So I was agitating them a little bit every time they said something. And then finally it got to the point. I said, what are you looking for, information? And they said, yeah, that's what we're looking for. I said, dial 411. And then it was bing, bang, boom. I got cracked in the mouth, and then it's thrown on the floor, That's when I saw, I figured cops were doing their job, a lot of cops. But then that's when I started to realize, hey, these guys are no better. They use just the same means we do. I mean, they're just on another side of the fence, They're no better than we are.
How much time did you do?
I did a 3-year bid, upstate New York.
And then you get out, what happens to you?
What happens is, at that time, there were still guys around that did the right thing. What they did was they got me an Italian bread route, all right, that they purchased for me. They put up the money for it, so that's yours. You did the right thing and everything else. I mean, you got to remember, too, that the first time I was ever in trouble in my life, okay, and I did time. When did you ever hear about that before?
Yeah.
Because of my lack of cooperation and my stubbornness that wound up getting me 3 years. But anyway, okay, Getting back to that, they get me the Italian bread route. They do the right thing. They says, this is good because you're on parole now. He said, parole officer he's not going to follow your truck around, you know. If you were in a stationary position some way, the guy's going to pop in. But after a while, he's going to get tired. He's going to see you working. You're going to the depot. You're picking up your load. You're going to all your stores. You got like 20 stores to go to. The cops are basically lazy people. I mean, they are. It's a fact. The investigative branch of them are. They don't rely really on footwork anymore. I mean, you know, they rely everything electronics now through computers and everything, and they don't really want to follow you around and really do good police work anymore.
So you see this bread route as an opportunity?
It's an opportunity for me. Like I grab the kid, I can make him run the route. I go pick up my load in the morning in case this okie doker shows up, this PO. He sees me loading. He did it a couple of times if that was it. And, you know, but every day I'd go there, load up and everything. Then I'd go meet the kid out on a route somewhere. He'd finish the route, and I'd go about my business with George. And we started a nice little shylock business together. You know,
shylock meaning, explain that to the audience.
Shylock. Shylock is loan shark. Loan shark. A guy that lends money at exorbitant interest rates, gives it to people who can't get money anywhere else. They can't go to banks. Banks won't deal with them. You know, because they don't have the credit or anything else, or maybe they don't even have jobs, you know.
Now, in the movies, though, the guys in the shylock business, loan sharks, they break people's kneecaps, don't they? Do you have to do any of that stuff?
Let me tell you, George, you know, intimidation and letting somebody's imagination works a lot better than doing that. In a sense, you're pretty much an actor out there. You're playing a role. As long as you can convince a guy, let him use his imagination. I mean, there's this one guy I used, to give you an example, I'm not using his name because he's still around. And the guy was like 6'8". He weighed like 250 pounds. All right, he had 22-inch arms, and he had a face like Frankenstein. Okay? I bring a guy like that, you know, to a guy's house. I mean, there was one guy, he opened the door to his house, and this guy stood there, and he blocked out every inch of sunlight that came through, like the door was never open. And the guy looks at him, and he says, well, you know, you're behind. It's time to collect. Oh, the guy, they drove to the bank together. I mean, you know, it was, you know, easy. And that's the way most of the time it was done. You got to remember, George, you hurt somebody and he is unable to go out there and earn. He can't pay you. All right? You know,
that makes sense. We're going to take it.
Realize. And if you go all the way with a guy, you're never going to get your money. All right?
All right, we're going to take a short – hold on, Tony. We're going to take another short break. We'll be right back, and we'll get into the escort service business. This is Coast to Coast AM, and I'm George Knapp. Welcome back, everyone, to Coast AM. I'm George Knapp. We're having an interesting conversation with Tony Nastasi. That used to be his name, a mob associate who got into the escort service business, and we'll be getting his reflections on this Elliot Spitzer mess a little bit later. Tony, tell me how you came to own an escort service.
By sheer accident. By sheer accident, George. It happened, I lent money to this guy who had a small escort agency in Long Island City, Queens. Okay. He was sort of banging out a living with it, but wasn't really doing, you know, well at all. And, you know, and a lot of times he was his own best customer. You know what I mean? So, you know, that didn't help the situation. And me, I'm a firm believer in you don't crap where you eat, you know, so. But he wasn't, so he was, you know, using the girls as his own little playtime, you know. And he ran into trouble. He also had some other vices, too. He liked to roll the dice a little bit, you know. And he liked to make his little trips down Atlantic City instead of paying attention to business. And bottom line is he was falling behind. He couldn't pay me, you know. And through use of intimidation, you know, he also was a little fearful. So he came to me one day, and he says, look, you know, I got this place. It's not really doing that well, but I got X amount of dollars invested in it. It probably could do well, but, you know, I can't be bothered with it. You know, he gave a whole bunch of excuses why. The bottom line excuse was he wasn't paying attention to the business, and he had too many vices going on. That was the bottom line, you know. And he told me, he says, listen, why don't you take a look at it? I'll give this to you, and, you know. I says, well, listen, first of all, I got to talk to somebody about this, all right, to see if I can get involved in something like that, all right. And I'll get back to you. I said, come and see me tomorrow. So I went to talk to my mentor, so